Clipping mask. Hi guys, today we will talk about clipping masks. You can see on the screen what we are going to do today, and we will start with this one. I have already dragged all the necessary images into one file, and now we will study the clipping mask using this example. The essence of the clipping mask is that the visibility of one layer is limited by the visibility of another layer. Moreover, this layer which sets the frames for the image is always located below. In our case, we have a girl and such lace vignettes that we will use as a frame. So, how to create a clipping mask? Let me remove this one for now, so that it doesn't interfere with us, and leave only this black element, which we will have as a clipping mask. In order to create a clipping mask, we need to hover the cursor between the two layers and hold down Alt key while clicking. As you can see, there is such an arrow, and now our image of the girl has become limited. In fact, it can be seen by the borders of this vignette. If you click Ctrl+T and zoom in a little bit, it will be obvious that it fits exactly here, along the borders. I am now moving up and down. You see that the image is bounded by the borders of the image below. But I can also change the size of the clipping mask itself. I click Ctrl+T on the clipping mask layer, and look, I am reducing, and only what is within the boundaries of this mask remains visible. You see, I will do a little more, so adjust the size. Here. Let's assume this is the way it suits me. It's quite simple, but despite the simplicity of this tool, you can use it to create a huge number of very interesting effects. By the way, we can also move the layer, which is a clipping mask, and a main one at the same time. We need to press Shift, take the moving tool, and move it as we need. And in order for us to have the same effect as shown in the example, let's finish it all. I turn off this layer. So, I think I need to reduce all this. I press Shift, select Ctrl+T, I place it in the center. Then, as you can see, I have such a small shadow here. It's easy. Edit another layer, take the brush tool, and just draw on a clean layer. Well, something like this. You can then reduce the transparency of this layer so that it is not too bright, as you like it best. And we are now using layer styles to do this volume effect. We'll talk about layer styles in the next lesson. And now I'll just show you one moment. I double click on any free place on the layer, a dialog box opens, and you select Emboss and Settings as I have. And here it is. See? Click OK. That's the effect. You can also, of course, move it so that all this is smooth. And so, for example, this is how we leave it all. This exercise was pretty simple. It was made just to show you how the clipping mask works. But still, I'll ask you to make it as your homework assignment. Now we'll move on to more complex exercises. Let's take an image of a girl. And first of all, we need to separate it from the background. Let's do it exactly the same way we did it in the last lesson. Unlock the layer. Take the tool. Quick selection. Select carefully. By the way, you can cancel the selection anytime if something suddenly went wrong by pressing the Ctrl+D. Click the mask icon, separate it from the background. Create a clean layer below the layer with the girl, which we will fill with black. In order to create a layer below, you need to press Ctrl, and only after that you need to click on the layer icon. And in order to fill in the background color, in our case it is black, press Ctrl+Backspace. So, I got a black background. Now of course you need to soften the edges of the image with a girl. We do the same thing as we did in the last lesson. We're adding feather, but this doesn't really improve the situation. Therefore, we can take a translucent black brush and using along the edge, and the edges of the image become more transparent. Look, the gray color appears here. We are now practicing the material of the last lesson and learning a new one at the same time. So, swipe along the edge. This can be done several times, increasing and decreasing the intensity of brush exposure. We can adjust its transparency several times until we get an effect that suits us. I want there to be no such rigid boundaries, so that everything goes smoothly into the shadows. Well, something like that. And now we still create a clipping mask in form of this lace. We need to take a file with necessary image, copy it, and put this lace that we have. The mask will become transparent. We will move it here. it will be useful to us. And now we'll need to create another clean layer. And now you'll understand why. These two layers will be our clipping mask. For me, it is layer 2 and layer 3. And if you want to make a clipping mask with two layers at once, you need to combine them into a group. Select these two layers, pressing Shift and click the group icon. Here is this group, in which we now have two layers. That will be a clipping mask for the girl. Press Alt and click between the layers. So now both of these layers are used as a regular mask. But it's better for us to remove this layer now, so that it's clearer and easier for us to work. We don't see anything because the layer 5 is just empty. There should be something on it. That will be a clipping mask. And if it was some kind of object last time, now we'll draw this clipping mask ourselves. Take a black brush. I remind you that if you don't have black and white colors here among the colors, then press D and they are restored to you. X key swaps them. I haven't taken a black brush because it has to be black. In fact, you can take the color you want. But in our case, taking into account a large amount of transparency, I will take black. And now I will draw. So the most important thing is to make this layer active, layer 5. And I start to use a brush. And as you can see, an image is gradually displaying. Everything will depend on how transparent your brush is. I increase the transparency of the brush, and it turns out as if the girl is illuminated more from this side. And by changing the transparency of the brush and its size, we can achieve the effect we want. If something goes wrong, then I can always fix it. The effect is we draw on this layer with a brush. It's not a mask that we have seen before. I mean, if I start drawing with a white brush now, original view will not be restored. If after all something has already been drawn, it is better to erase it with an eraser. When we draw on a layer when there is no mask, we use eraser to return something to the original state. We take an eraser. This tool can be opened with E key. So take the eraser. Just like the brush, it has a degree of transparency that you can adjust, and the greater this percentage, the stronger it will erase. For example, with a percentage of 15, it will erase a little bit and return black color. But if I put 100, look, that's it. A black color of the bottom layer coming back. But not because this layer is coming back, but because I am erasing the borders of the image on the layer, which we have as a clipping mask. This is an important moment. I'll just go back now. Well, 100% is too much. Let's set less. For example, I want to edit some shadows here. I edit it in exactly the same way. Where I want to erase everything, I will set 100%. Back to the brush. Let's take a 100% brush, because in this part of the face that I would like to highlight as much as possible, I will take a bigger brush. I can arrange all the color accents with the help of a mask, just like that. And now let's connect this layer to our clipping mask. I make it visible. And let's place this pattern so that it corresponds to what we have in mind. So I take the move tool and move it somehow like this. We can also change the size. I want it like this. And in order for this pattern not to be so active, reduce the transparency. For example, to this size. And now let's talk about the eraser again. Look, altogether, these two layers create a clipping mask that masks some parts of the image from above, but each layer itself is not a mask. They are not the same as this one on this layer. Therefore, we use an eraser to move some parts of this layer. So we take this eraser, and now I'm going to erase it here, because these elements can be visible. Look, a transparent area appeared right here. And in those places where I think that the pattern is too active for me, we will now reduce the transparency of the eraser to half, and it will not erase this pattern completely, but only half. Look, I use it here, and it erases it by half and gives a certain volume. We can make this pattern a little less intense along the borders of the face with the help of an eraser. That's it. Now I realized that I need to display the girl a little at the bottom of the image. I'm moving on to layer 5, where we have a brush drawing. I take a black brush and add it a little here. You see, everything is highlighted right away. Since I have a 100% brush, it immediately lit up so actively. If I want to do it less actively, I again take a 50% eraser and erase a little. And I get it like this. Maybe a little more. In general, you can do all this for a very long time. All this is such a rather delicate work that can be done for a very long time. Probably, it seems to me, it is also possible to remove a little pattern in the eye area. I'll make a smaller brush and an eraser on the layer with the pattern. I'll work here a little bit. Then I will come back here on a layer with a brush. I will take a brush and I will use a reduced brush in the eye area to make the eye brighter. See what happens. Therefore, I will reduce its opacity, and I do it again, so that the eye is highlighted. Here, in fact, you can do a lot more with the help of different tools. It's just that we're still limited to the minimum that we have studied, but everything is still ahead. Finally, let's take this pattern and also edit it to our image, and we place it where we would like. Notice I placed it above all the layers, and you can reduce the transparency so that it is not so much visible. Well, this is the result we got. This is your second homework assignment for today. I hope that you will be able to do it. Now I will try to explain why the dark lace that we added becomes light on the girl's face. Look, clipping mask makes visible those parts of the image that somehow marked on the clipping mask. We have a black background. There is the girl and layers of clipping mask that regulate the visibility of the girl. Let's remove the lace for now, so that it doesn't confuse us. Originally, everything looked like this, and there was nothing painted on this mask. Let me take an eraser now. I'm now moving to the layer where we have already done something, and erase it. Look, we can't see anything, because we don't have anything on the clipping mask at this moment. But if I take a brush and start to draw something, let me set the opacity of the brush to 50%, about 50. I'm starting to draw. We can see features of a girl, but please note that they are not fully showed, only by 50%. It means that the girl's visibility is not fully restored. If I make the brush more transparent and use it, then these areas are illuminated more. Please note that if I look closely at the layer icon, then you'll see that we have the maximum black color in this area, where here our brush is completely non-transparent. There the image of the girl is completely visible. In fact, we make these areas as visible as possible by adding dark areas. Now let's move on to the right side of the girl's face. Now we have her face shown here by 50%, since this is the brush we used. But if we, for example, take the 100% brush and use this brush in this eye area, then the eye will be fully shown. You see, a black dot appeared here. It happened because this area became completely transparent, and it's the same with the lace. When we added absolutely black lace, this part of the face becomes completely transparent, and through the lace we see the photo as it is, and the less transparent the brush is, the more visible the lace pattern will be. And if we want, for example, to make lace even more noticeable, then we need to reduce the degree of brush exposure in this area. Let's do it with an eraser. By the way, it could be done on the layer mask, but I'm just not going to confuse you now. It may look rather difficult, so we will take an eraser. If we have an eraser with 100% opacity, then we will completely erase what we drew with a brush in the right part of our face. Look, we will now erase the impact of the brush in this part of the face with an eraser. Here, look what happens if we use 100% eraser. The brush effect is completely erased, and at the same time the lace becomes very clearly visible and the face is not visible. If we just make our eraser half transparent and start using it in some sections, then it will be something like this. But to make it look more aesthetic, it's better to take a soft eraser. Select soft eraser. Look, I can use it on the edges and added some shadows to make the girl's face still more voluminous. And at the same time, the lace itself becomes even more noticeable. I use it there. Look, the brightness of the lace is determined by two factors. The first one is directly the image as it is, and the second is the degree to which we display the image due to opacity. Let's summarize. Clipping mask makes the girl face visible, otherwise we would only have a black background, and by marking certain areas on the clipping mask, we display certain parts of the girl's face, and specifically In this situation, the degree of face display is determined by two factors that overlap each other. This is a semi-transparent brush that only partly shows the features of the girl's face, and an absolutely opaque black lace, which shows the girl's facial features completely. And it's due to this that we see lace as we see it, light. If we take the black brush and start drawing here, then we simply will not see the lace, because it's also completely black. That's how it is. It was Peter Romanov and AIM School. See you next time.